Hi, hello,
I
hello.
can't see my
Yeah,
face, so am I
you're
supposed to
using your
turn
you're using your
something?
camera in reverse. I think you need to turn it towards you.
Hello, for me. Am I supposed to turn the camera or
Yes,
something?
yes, you should switch your camera.
Let me see. What do I do? I'm not sure.
You should have an icon at the bottom of your screen that shows like two arrows opposite to one another. Yeah, there.
Okay. All right.
Hi. Hi, hi,
Hello.
hi. Hi, Binky. Hi, Just FFL. Thanks for joining.
Oh, oh, oh. You know FFL.
No, I can see her. I can see her name scrolling through the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Yes, trying to get the other folks on board. Yeah, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Uziyama, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, hi, hi. Yeah, great, great, great. Yeah, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Yoma.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good to see you. I believe Ihuaku is still trying to join. Let me see if she's able to come on now. Well, welcome to everyone who's joined. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Looking forward to a great session.
I think I'm just realizing that Instagram is not like Zoom, so I can't falsify my background.
Yeah, it's fine. Your background is just great.
Hi,
Your
Jane.
background is just great. Hi, everyone. Ozzy, I can see some people hitting you out there already. Thanks to everyone that's come through. We want you all to tag your folks, invite somebody. Yes, we're going to be talking. Yeah, so if you want to go grab a cup of water, if you want to do something, yes, yes. Thanks everyone who's joined in. We look forward to having a lot more folks join us on the conversation. So we'll kick off in about 2 minutes. In the meantime, let me consider to play this my background music. But yeah, we're waiting on Ihuaku to join us. Um, looking forward to a great session. So how's it out there on your sides, folks?
Yeah, it's been an interesting day.
I know, I know, I know, I know. So much to juggle. But thanks for making it. We'll kick off at 12, since that's the promised time. In the meantime, we'll continue to tag folks, invite folks. Welcome. If you're joining, just put where you're joining us from in the chat. Even if you're here for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, we're glad that you're here and we want to hear where you're joining from. So once you come through, please do say hi to us. Yes, I just waved at a couple of folks. Yes, thanks for coming through. We start in about a minute. We will be talking. We will be talking takes stock. And so looking forward to a very great session, power pack session, appointment with destiny. What I don't know what other name to call it, but I know that there's no coincidence, that you're here, you're joining, or you're even listening to this later, because of course some people are going to be watching this at some point in the future. So I'm excited that we're able to encounter ourselves on this platform. And so welcome, Janam Safet, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, welcome. We do have one more guest that's going to be joining. She's juggling, I believe, some last minute logistics. So we will add her online when she's able to join the call. So thanks everyone who's already online. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. Thank you. So let's know where you're joining from. Please put it in the chat. Let's know where you're joining from today. Excited to have you on here. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Please engage with us. Engage with us. If you have comments, if you have chats, if you're just curious, let's know what it is, I'm curious. I came by to see what you're going to be talking about. Oh, I'm excited. I have an idea of what you're going to be talking about. Yeah, thanks. From New Orleans, from Lagos. Thank you. Thank you. From Nigeria. Thanks. Thank you for everyone who's joined. AI Voice, thanks for joining. As you're joining, please put your notes in the chat, where you're joining from, and just your general sense of, why you're here. Like, okay, I'm just walk up past, or really, I'm curious about what you all are going to be talking about and all of that. But I am excited. I'm super excited. I thought about this start a couple of times. I was like, what am I going to say? But borderline is I'm excited because I know that this is an important session. It is one where we're going to be having conversations that could potentially change somebody's perspective to life. That's going to help somebody from Ibadan. Yeah, where's my sister? Thanks for joining. That'll make somebody, oh goodness. Thank you, Sam. You saw Ozioma go live and you wanted to see. So thank you for wanting to see Ozioma. Yeah, she's here. She is here. We're going to have the conversation. If you're joining, I'm trying to add her back. I think Ozioma dropped off. Okay, let me try to add her back again. All right. Okay. So thank you for joining. As you come through, please put where you're joining from in the chat. Let's know where you're joining from. Let's see how things are going on your end. How are you feeling today? How's today? How's the weather? How has the week been? What's happening on your end of town? Curious to know, curious to hear from you. As I sort of manage some of my last minute logistics with adding my guests back on. I'm trying to add Ozioma back onto the call. So let's see if she's able to rejoin. She was here a minute ago. Ronke is here. Okay, yeah, Ozioma, welcome back. Yeah.
I was like, what's going on?
I was like, hey, what's going on? Right after somebody just said, Ozioma, I joined because I saw Ozioma go live, and then Ozioma left. I
Oh,
was like, oh.
hi,
All right,
Sam.
so welcome, Oluwadu Sinja, welcome, Bukishola, welcome, long time. So, all right, again, like I said, I'm excited that you all are able to come through this Instagram live. If you're going to be listening to this later, if you're watching this later, I'm still glad that you got a chance to have this conversation. We're supposed to be having 3 guests here today. Ihuaku Ugu is our third, the third person joining this panel of 4. But I think she's sort of, finishing up a few things. So when she does join, I'll put her on live. But I would like to just get us all kicked off and started. I've been asking folks to tell us where they've joined from. I've seen New Orleans, I've seen Lagos, I've seen Nigeria, Ibadan, Nigeria. So thank you for joining. It's afternoon in some places. It is evening in Nigeria. It's evening in UK as well. But we might as well just get into the real gist of why we're here. And we're talking about Take Stock. For those who don't know, my name is Fumilola Asa. I'm a transformational catalyst. I help folks see things that help them transform themselves, as I do that myself. So in my day job, I'm a strategy advisor in the energy industry. I've been in the industry for about I'll be 17 years this year. But in the last couple of years, I've been on a journey around rediscovering myself, realizing, some of the potential that God has put inside of me. It's led me on very interesting paths, some of which involves the ladies that are on the call today. I met them in the last couple of years, and it sort of created that burning desire in me to share with other people the importance of taking stock, of recognizing what's important for you. And so I wrote a book. And hey, Ihuaku, welcome. Let's see if we can add Ihuaku to the video. Give me 1 second, please. Ihuaku is the last guest who's supposed to be joining us. All right. So I've invited her. Let's see if she's able to join. All right. So once again, the goal of this session is to talk about the book. So I've had a couple of sessions before now. I had that it was like a book reading, book reading. Today is not a book reading. Today is conversation. We're talking practical talk. And the ladies who are joining me on this session have touched the book in one way or another. From Ozioma, who edited the book, Ronke read it in a week, and she kept sending me insights from it, and it was so heartwarming to hear her do that. Ihuaku was the first person to purchase the book. And we also encountered ourselves in the course of writing the book. So I would allow each one of them to introduce themselves to you, and then we'll get into the heart of the talk. Again, to my point earlier, I believe that there's a reason we have this session today. It's because somebody's practical story is probably the ginger that somebody needs today to get them on the path of purpose and impact to their world, to their generation, to the sphere of life that they ought to be in, making an impact, making a difference. And then somehow they may not have managed to realize that, I'm carrying this much on my inside, or, I just feel like things are not working well, or maybe, you're just not, your perspective to life is just different. And so maybe you need somebody today to put on the light bulb for you based on their own stories, how they've encountered the book, and beyond the book, their own story, and how being intentional in their journey has helped them to sort of adjust their perspective to life. And so without talking too much, I would say please stay engaged. If you have questions, put it in the chat. We might be giving out some copies of the book. If we get very engaged people on the chat and we're really excited about it, I have somebody monitoring the chat, so I'll know who's engaged, who's sharing the nuggets, the things you're picking up today, and you're putting it in the chat for somebody else to catch it in case they missed it, or they grabbed a cup of coffee while the conversation was going on at that time. So please engage, tag somebody, bring somebody, invite somebody. It is going to be an awesome conversation. Before I give a bit of intro on the book, I would say let the guests introduce themselves. I'll sort of start with Ronke. Very brief introduction about yourself. We'll still do the double click deep dive in a few minutes. So, Ronke, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Fumi. Glad to be here. For my daytime job, I work in the financial sector, but my passion really is reading and also mentoring younger ones. So I love to read. I mean, it's very strange that my way of distressing is to read. So I love reading, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ronke. I can attest to the fact that Ronke loves to read. Ronke read the 344-page book in a week or less. So I do know that she loves to read, and I see her post so many times, based on things that she has read, putting it on her WhatsApp and all of that. Another person that is a book reader that's always on her status with books is Ozioma. Ozioma, just introduce yourself briefly.
So I was just going to say, I'm not sure my passion is as deep as Ronke's because I read because I need to grow and I need to learn, not necessarily because, but I'm very inspired by that. Anyways, my name is Ozioma Paul. I'm a third year PhD student, and I'm very interested in the intersection between policy and technology. How can we use technology to drive better social outcomes? So that's me in a nutshell. So like Onke said, I guess that's my daytime life, or that's my daytime job. On the side, I really like storytelling. I believe so much in the power of storytelling to inspire positive outcomes in people. So I love storytelling. I used to run a podcast, YouTube some other time, blogs, and I just really like to share my stories in different ways. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I like to read as well. Yeah, I like to read.
Thanks, Ozioma. Thanks. There's a common thread going on there. So let's turn it over to Ihuaku.
Hi, ladies. I'm so glad I was able to make the
Hi.
call. As you can see, I'm in my car. I had to go somewhere and I couldn't make it back home on time. But yes, I love to read as well. So, and my bookshelf is full of books. I have to keep having more bookshelves. And on my nightstand, there's lots of books as well. So I am a mom and I'm a wife, and my daytime job is as an HR manager. I actually help organizations grow by helping their people to grow as well. I like the idea of the book because it kind of resonates with the work I do. I like to see people grow, and if you really want to grow, you need to read the book. Okay, so I'm glad to be part of this conversation, and I can't wait to see where our conversation and your questions for those of you joining us live will take us. Over to
Yeah.
you, Fumi.
Thank you, Ihuaku. Thank you so much. So there was a common thread there. People had like, my daytime job is X, but beyond the daytime job, there's X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's some of the things that we hope that comes across as we talk through the stories here. Because I found that often when we have one lens on our lives, we measure ourselves in a certain way. And we may be doing great in that space, but the question is what's happening in the other aspects of you? How are you impacting lives? How are you touching lives? Are there things you should be doing that you're not doing because you're kind of just looking in that square box of my daytime job? And so the conversations around Take Stock is a whole person conversation. It is looking at you, the entity, you, the person who's here for purpose, for impact, and recognizing that there are many ways in which you can be making that impact. One, two, recognizing how am I even doing as a person? Because often if you, the person, are not taking enough time to recognize how you're doing, how you're faring, what's my mental model? Sometimes they say most of the battles are won and won and lost in the mind. Some people would never start anything because they look at themselves and like, little me, what can I say? What would they hear me say? Believe me, I've had those sort of things as well myself. But I realized as I started to open my mouth with God's guidance, I started to find that there were people who would say, "Oh, that's awesome. I didn't think about that." Or, "Oh, this was the very reinforcement that I needed in my life." And so the quote that I had to start the book is, "The true growth that stems from impactful and purposeful living starts with a holistic assessment of your life's facets, the different dimensions of your life. And then you can then realign to where you need to fit into what God's plan is for you." And so we're hoping that as these ladies share their stories today, as they talk about their perspectives from the book, the themes that they've encountered, that it channels something for you, it sparks something for you, and it makes you realize that, yeah, there's more to me if only I just stop and breathe and be intentional of where I've been on, where I'm coming from, where I'm going to, where I should be, as life happened to you so much so that you're almost feeling like, what all those dreams I used to have back then, they're no longer relevant. Yeah, maybe they are relevant. Maybe you should be opening those your journals of so many years ago. But then again, I trust God to see where this conversation goes today. Again, brief intro. It's a book that's called Take Stock of Who You've Become on the Journey to Becoming. It's faith-based, but it's very practical, to help you on your journey towards purposeful and impactful living. And hi, welcome to everyone who's come through. You can put in the chat where you're joining from. We're happy to have you. For as long as you're here, we're happy to have you. Sometimes all you need is a one sentence from one of those ladies, and maybe that's all you came for. You never know. So thank you for coming through. Let us know where you're joining from. Just say hi to us, wave, and we acknowledge your presence. So thanks for stopping by. Before we start the deep dive, there were 5 aspects I touched on in the book about being important for you as a person. One of them is take stock of your well-being. Like, who am I and who have I become? That's one of the biggest questions that remains unanswered for so many people. So many people have become so busy about the things they want to do that they haven't realized who they have become, so that they know where to start to make those adjustments from. The second part is take stock of your assignment. Who am I sent to and what am I sent to do? The third one is take stock of your opportunities and giftings. What is in my hands? What do I have? What do I know? What are the things that I'm treating very mildly, and that's like the key that unlocks everything for me. Take stock of your journey. Where have you been on? What's the journey of your life? How did you get to this point? What is unique about that journey that might help somebody to get on their journey? Like, I survived this, I came out strong, I came out better, and because of that, I can assure you that it's possible. And And that's the reinforcement that somebody else needs. But sometimes we're too ashamed about it, or we think it's not relevant. So if we sit and think about that journey, it gets you on a trajectory that helps somebody. And you would hear the ladies talk through things here today. And then the fifth one is take stock of your resources. Take stock of your resources, your people resources, your time as a resource, your credibility as a resource, and then financial resources. Those are 5 things I talk about in the book, and mostly from helping you to ask yourself those questions. This is not an answer to everything. It's more of a guide towards you becoming that person. And so the goal of this session today is to have people talk about practical encounters that they've had with the book, but more importantly, just talk about their own journey, where they've been on, and why being intentional, about every aspect of your life is important. And so, because I've been going on for a long time, and I'm not the only one on this screen, I'm going to start the conversation and just switch it to Ronke. Let Ronke get us started. So Ronke, if you can just talk about your journey and you think about being intentional about stock taking, what would you want to talk about today? Also along the themes of what we're talking about, in the book. So over to you, Ronke.
All right, thank you, Fumi. So for me, the very first part where you talked about being intentional about your well-being, where you are. So, I mean, in that part, you talked about a lot of aspects of our life. You talked about our health. You talked about our spiritual lives. You talked about our intellect as well. And you touched on a lot of areas. So I remember when I was a Sunday school teacher, there was this theme we had that talked about the total child. And for the total child, it talked about 4 major aspects of your life. He talked about the physical aspect. He talked about the spiritual aspect. He talked about the mental aspect, which is the intellect now. And then he also talked about what would I call that now? But I know it also has to do with just being balanced generally. So for me, when I picked up the book, what struck me was the fact that we need to be intentional in everything that we do. So what's my story? About 5.5 years ago, I had a major life-changing event. They say life happens, and when life happened, it hit me real hard, and it affected every single phase of my life. My husband had a health challenge that changed the trajectory of our family life and all of that, and somehow in the midst of everything, I almost lost myself. But when you talk about being intentional, for me, I neglected a lot of things about myself, my health. I also now had a major health challenge, and that forced me to think. And I decided I was going to be purposeful about my health. And what do I do now? I make sure I eat well. I make sure I exercise on a daily basis. I make sure I go for my regular checkups. And talk about taking stock as well. It impacted the children, and in being intentional, now you told us to take stock of the things we've achieved. I felt a lot had gone wrong and nothing was working well. But after I read the book Intentional, I went back and I realized that even in the midst of everything that happened, everybody had grown. The children had gone through school, they had done very well. One had even graduated as well. So even in the midst of the challenges, we all learned and we all grew through it. So my encouragement to everyone out there is, no matter what you're going through, in the midst of everything, you find out that there's still something to be grateful about, if you're intentional enough to sit down and think and take stock. So I encourage you, my friends on the call, please be intentional, take stock every day. And one of the aftermaths of reading the book Take Stock is that I now have a gratitude journal. So every day, no matter how tough that day is, I take out time to write. And I find out that as I'm looking forward to filling my gratitude journal, it makes me consciously think of the things that are working right. So it's a good habit to imbibe. If you don't have a gratitude journal once, it's something you should do. It doesn't have to be something fancy. It's just a jar. So every day, just write a note, put the date, and put it in. So a lot to talk about. I'll leave the floor to other members to talk. And then when you come back to me, I'll say more about the book,
All right.
Stock Taking. Thank you, Fumi.
Thank you, Ronke. Thank you. And I know that a lot of people can relate. They can relate because sometimes when life happens and just throws you out of balance, you start to feel like, is this all? Is all the time I spent, everything is just going wrong. And right there, the self-limiting beliefs start to happen. Like, sometimes we ask ourselves, we say we failed at things. Whereas right there, through those journeys, you still find things to be grateful for. I always say to people that some of my biggest learnings in life came in through the toughest times of my life. Those are the times I grew. That's when I built resilience that I took on to other stages in life. And some people look at me and they draw inspiration, even when I don't even know that I'm doing that to them. So again, if we're intentional, you find that there's something to be grateful for. There's something that has changed in you. There's something that has made you a better person in your readiness and your resilience in life because you went through something. And so I'll just swing it to Ihuaku. Again, folks are talking about different aspects of this. And so Ihuaku, I'll just allow you to go have the conversation before we cycle back to Ronke again to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Fumi, and thank you, Ronke, for sharing your story. I remember reading the book, especially at the second part where you mentioned why we have to take stock, and you mentioned the story of Elijah. And when I started to read it from your perspective, it kind of resonated with me, right? Because Elijah at that time even the king was afraid of him, right? Everybody thought he was the greatest and the best. Even till today, we say, where is the God of Elijah, right? God of Elijah, send out fire, right? He had just done something that had never been done. But we realized that throughout the journey, there were hints to him. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. There are people here. There are people there. There are still people who have not bowed down their knees to bow, right? But that didn't resonate with him at all. He went through all that journey, did all that great stuff, and still felt alone, still felt burnt out, still felt like it was useless. In fact, he asked God to let him die, right? When everybody was already celebrating him. So for me, the book helped me to realize that, look, everything might be going on very, very well on the outside, right? You might be at the top of your career, your business, your industry, your community, but you still need to take stock. You still need to be intentional about taking stock. And that is the only time you'll be able to know for sure if everything you're doing is according to your purpose, right? So it's really, really important for us, everybody on this call. You don't have to wait for something to happen in your life. Like you rightly mentioned in the how to take stock, you have to do it every day. You have to do it every week. You have to do it every month. You have to do it every year. You don't wait for your life to turn upside down before you do it. Taking stock is really, really important, and it has helped me in my life. I'll hand over back to you, Fumi.
No, thanks, Ihuaku. And I'm glad you touched on that. Honestly, when I was reading, I reread some parts of the book yesterday in preparation for this session. And honestly, she's talking about a chapter where I said, why should you take stock? And I said, one of them is, it just helps you to focus. It helps you to, your destiny might be tied to somebody else, but sometimes it also prevents burnout.
Mm-hmm.
It was so powerful to me that when that idea came to me, I was scared of putting it in the book because I was like, Elijah is the person that everybody recognizes as, Elijah, the man of fire, the man of power. Like, how do you now talk about him not taking stock? But I was like, he did all these great, wonderful things. He called down fire. He was like, to your point, the king was scared of him. But he went, and because the one person, the queen, said, you're a dead man tomorrow. And he said, I've failed. There's so many of us today who feel like failures because the one person that we continue to look for validation has not given us that validation. We hear of people who are doing fine, and then you hear that person committed suicide, and you're like, what's going on here? They had battles they were fighting inside of their mind, but everybody else thought they were doing well, but somehow they didn't manage to appreciate what was going on there. There was a movie I watched that some guy was going through stuff, and he would say he always remembered the words of his father that he would never amount to anything, he would never do stuff. And until he went back and addressed that, he would always never be satisfied with whatever he was doing. And initially it was like, how did Elijah go from being this great guy that the whole of the country was celebrating to being oh Lord, it's just me, kill me? And we're like, how did he do that? But I realized that each and every one of us goes through those cycles, maybe not as dramatic as Elijah, but you've gone now, people are saying you're doing great. Some of them are not even telling you, they're admiring you, and you close your door and you still feel empty inside. Sometimes it's because something happened some years back and you feel like the person who is supposed to be acknowledging you is not acknowledging you. If we're not intentional enough and recognize those, we may be shortchanging ourselves from even doing bigger things for God. But again, I just thought to build on that because that really resonated with me, and I could see myself. There are times when people will say for me, "You're doing great," and I'm just like, but it's not showing up in this aspect of my life. Like, so what are you people talking about? And so it's important that we are very intentional about what's going on with us, in our heads, in our minds, in our career, in different aspects of our lives. And so thanks for highlighting that, Ihuaku. Let me turn this to Ozioma. And everybody, if you're joining us, please tell us where you're joining us from. If you just came because your friend went on live, that's also great. We're excited to have you. Tell us why you're here. Tell us what you're picking up. Tell us what is resonating with you. We want to hear you. This is not just about us. This is not a scripted conversation. We're speaking as we're being led to talk about. And I know that there's a reason every one of those sentences come across. And so if there's something that's resonating with you, please put it in the chat. Write it out. Let somebody else catch it the way that's come up for you, because that's really the goal of this conversation. Beyond selling the book, I am so passionate about let us take stock. The more you take stock, the more there's a beauty and a confidence that comes from inside, because you recognize what's going on with you, and you also know what you need to work on, because it's not always like, okay, yeah, I've carried so much. You know what you need to improve on, because you know where you're going to, you know who you should be talking to, you know that you're here because your story impacts somebody else's story. And so, Ozioma, let's hear from you.
Okay, I think similar to Ronke's story is I think that the moment I started being very intentional about my life was when sometime in 2019, early 2019, I had this very ghastly accident. And to be honest, I think that but for God's mercy, I probably would have died that night. And in a matter of hours, I saw my life flash before me and I realized, oh my God, I'm still here. And then I realized, so if I died, that would have been the end. Like, it was a very, I think I was in shock for a very long, period of time. Not shock out of the actual physical effect of the accident, but just a realization of the fact that I've been on autopilot. Like, my life has just been on auto. No intentionality, just auto, going, 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 going. And realizing the fact that if you do not stop and actually take stock, life would actually keep going until you get to a point where you realize and say, oh, so what exactly did I do for the past 70 years of my life? And also, when I then, started reading the book, editing the book, I think Fumi would remember that it was such a difficult process for me to just stay on course and edit, because I kept writing, I kept dropping out notes, and I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to stay on course and edit this thing and get it out in the timeline that you said. But I started to realize the fact that intentionality is not just, I don't know. I think it's like growing up and how we all thought, well, one thing, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. And so that kind of puts us on a one road lane, thinking about our life in one way. But I think one of the major things that stood out from that experience, and also from reading this book over and over again, is how multidimensional life is and how important it is to be very intentional across those different dimensions. Otherwise, life is a game of focus, and if you choose to focus on one part, it's possible, like Ronke said, you don't get to see the growth that's happening on the other side, and so you limit yourself. So yeah, that's it for me. That's, I don't know if I'm touching the bit, but let me start with that bit. That shock of, oh my goodness, life is actually going to pass me by if I don't stop and take stock. Yeah.
No, so Ozioma, I'm glad you touched on that word autopilot. It's a trigger for me. And confirm you can hear me well. I'm being told that my
I
mic is
can.
a bit low. You can
I
hear me
hear
well.
you.
Okay. All right. The trigger, it's a trigger word, the autopilot, because that describes how a lot of us go through life. And that's how I probably went through life for like almost the total number of years before the last couple of years, where you're chasing, yeah, we get up, we grow up, we study, we go to work, we make money, we have children, we get married, we do this, and you're just chasing it. I described it in the book as the hamster wheel of ambition. You just keep running, you're just on it. I think it's almost a rhythm. In fact, at some point you start to tell yourself that you enjoy it, but then something happens and then you're like, where has all of this time gone to? I think, what's going on here? For some people, it's milestone birthdays. For some people, it's an illness. For some people, it's something happens in their relationship, as in maybe, the child says something. In fact, I've had my share of that. Despite taking stock, I've had my share of that in recent time. I had my son tell me something. I was teasing him about something else and saying, you need to learn, you need to do this, and it's like, I know you learn a lot, so you almost don't have no time for me. And it was like a slap on my face, because I'm like, I'm there, I'm not in parties, I'm in the house. But because I have so many things I'm chasing and trying to, even on my impact journey, I potentially started becoming blindsided to one aspect of my life. And so being able to stop on this journey that we've reinforced ourselves with over time to say, is this what I should be doing? Who am I impacting? So those things might be great, but maybe wrapped in there are the opportunities to impact life. Maybe in your office, there are people there that you should be impacting, but your own is, I come in here, make my day stay and go. And maybe there was that one person whose path you crossed and you could have impacted. Impact, we use it loosely. Impact is like you make a dent on something because they encountered you, they remember something. Because they encountered you, their life changed. Because they encountered you, now they're on a different path. How many of us are really intentional about those? If you're not being intentional about what you carry, how you got to where you got to, sometimes you might not even pay that much attention to it, and you miss out on those opportunities to impact others. And so that's what the message of the book really is. It's not one of those, it's coming from a deep place. It's coming from a place of, I can't imagine this was what was happening to me. I need more people to know this. And that's why you see that when I talk about it, the light bulb comes on. I'm shining because I feel like more people need to know about that. And so if we continue that whole line of conversation around impact, purpose, again, the goal here is not to anchor everything to the book, because each and every one of those people here have been on journeys. They're impactful people. They have crowd of people that they follow and that follow them rather, and that they impact. But the good thing was, when they read the book, they found things that resonated with, even some things that they were already doing. And so again, around how taking stock impacts you on your journey of purpose and impact, I don't know if you have some more thoughts you'd like to share. Ihuaku, let's start with you this time around.
All right. So I remember you mentioned about Jesus going to Jairus' daughters, going to raise Jairus' daughter from dead. Well, at that time she was still sick, right? She hadn't really died, but he was on his way. And this woman that had been bleeding for 12 years came. She was intentional about what she wanted to do. She knew what she was hoping for. And she touched the hem of his garment. And in all that chaos, I want us to imagine this. Anywhere Jesus went, there was thousands of people following him, right? But he stopped, right? And he said, "Who touched me?" Now the disciples, everybody's like, "What are you talking about? Can't you see all this crowd here? Everybody's pushing, trying to get a glimpse of you, trying to see who is this Jesus self, and why is all this?" Some people didn't even know why they were there, right? But he stopped, right? And he said that power had left him. It was important that he understood at that moment that it was a life-changing moment, not just for the woman, but for everybody else that is going to hear of that story, right? Some people may never read the Bible to hear it, but they will hear the story from somewhere else. And we know what that story represents for us as well, right? So on the journey to impact, it's really, really important that we recognize those moments that have been given to us, those opportunities that have been given to us to make a life-changing decision or take a life-changing action for somebody else, not just for ourselves. And you did say that, how was Jesus able to realize this? It's because every day he took time. He separated from the crowd. He went to talk to his father. He went to reflect. He went to pray. He went to think. He literally went to take stock every single day. So when those opportunities came up, right, he was able to take advantage of it. And that is the same for us. Like you said, a number of us are on autopilot. Wake up, get ready for work, eat, walk, go back home, take care of the home, sleep, repeat the cycle again, weekend, repeat the cycle again, without actually taking time to reflect on a daily basis. Sometimes we take stock, but we say, okay, I will take stock at the end of the week or at the end of the month. And a lot of people, because this is a new year, they only take stock at the end of the year. But I want to encourage each and every one of us to take stock every day. Like Ronke said, she looks for something to be grateful for. When you become intentional about taking stock, those moments when they drop into your life, you'll be able to recognize them. And that is the only time you'll be able to make impact in people's lives. Sometimes the way we talk, sometimes the way we act, we don't even know that there's somebody somewhere watching, looking at you, trying to emulate what you're doing. And if you take the wrong step, you actually have the person going the wrong step without knowing why that wrong step was taken. So it's really, really important that we do take stock every day. It's a skill. You will learn it and you will get better at it. Thank you for me.
Thank you. You have to take stock intentionally. You have to get to the point where it becomes an unconscious competence. Like things happen and you're asking yourself, what just happened? Because
Mm-hmm.
life is busy, right? To your point, like we are out doing so many things, and it's possible for you to get lost in all of
Yeah.
that. And that's the danger for most people. When we talk about take stock and all of that, some people are thinking, yeah, this is just about, yeah, the deep spiritual aspects of your life. This is about even the mental models that you carry around what is not doable. As in, there's something that you should be doing right now, and you're saying, who will listen to me? Has it been done before? And you have everything that you need in its raw form. All you need is a little bit of sharpening up, of improving those skills, and you're like, you know what? I'll get to it at some point. But like somebody once said to me that if you want to buy a red car, I've forgotten what it's called, that as soon as you want to buy a red car, and we used that example recently with me, that I first heard it from Fofo, said once you think I want to buy a red car, everywhere you're driving, you just have to see red car everywhere. You're wondering, did they just magically show up? That's only because you focused and you wanted to buy a red car. You started to see red cars around you. When you start to be intentional about the things that you want to do, you start to see light bulbs around you.
Mm-hmm.
You start to see opportunities that otherwise you would never have recognized as being important. But because you know where you're going, you know how this is important, and everybody is wondering, what are you doing? Nobody is looking at that right now. There are decisions that I've made, even in my career, that for others is like, what are you even thinking? But because I kind of had a sense of where I wanted to go, those opportunities looked different to me from the lens of purpose, from the lens of impact, from the lens of this is aligned with the things that I'm passionate about. And so you need to be intentional to start to ask yourself those questions as an individual. What do I know? Where have I been on? What am I passionate about? What are the questions I'm able to answer for people quickly? What are the things that come easily to me that people acknowledge it, but you're like, yeah, that's only when we're doing parties. It's only when we're organizing parties. And maybe there's inside of you is one, major event planner there, and you're like, no, that's only for small family things. So being intentional around the multiple dimensions of your life is very, very important. Very important. Because ultimately, God created us for purpose. God created us for impact. There's a reason you're here. There's a reason you know the people you know. There's a reason you're in the office that you're in. There's a reason why you're in the family that you are in. There's a reason why there's somebody that you're having a chance encounter with all the time. But somehow you're just not drawing the thread because you're not paying attention. Those are the kind of things we talk about in the book, because you start to see dots connect for you when you are intentional about your life, your journey. There's an example I gave in the book around Moses, that Moses was born at a time when there was intense oppression, but yet he had a chance to be in the palace at that time. So he knew what freedom looked like. He knew what it was like to be free. Those were aligned with his ultimate assignment. He did not know at the time. He was passionate about if you cheat people, he wants to jump in and fight. And then ultimately, he led a whole nation out of captivity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no way, if you are told the young Moses that will happen, he'll be like, no. But his own mental model at that time, because he had a chance to see what freedom was like in the palace, he was different from the average child that was born at that time. So what's different about you? What are the things that are frustrating you today? What are the things that you feel so passionate about, but you feel incapacitated? You might not be incapacitated. That's how I started to realize that there were things I could say, there were things I could do, there were opportunities, but I used to feel restless. I just knew that there was something I needed to be doing differently. And so maybe that's why somebody is on this call today or listening to this. Maybe there's something you should be asking yourself about, in terms of your assignment and of purpose. And so let's hear from Ozioma in terms of how just taking stock helps you to be more purposeful and impactful.
Like I said earlier, one of the important lessons that has come out from reading this book and from, my past, personal experiences is understanding the fact that life is a game of focus. Okay, so like what you focus on, like the story of the red car, sometimes I'm like, is Google listening to me or what? Are all these apps listening to me or what? I just step out. Sometimes I even it's just a thought in my heart, and then everywhere I go, I start seeing all the things that I was just thinking about in my heart, and then I realized the fact that in terms of when it comes to like intentionality and taking stock, something that is very critical is understanding the fact that I've got to be focused. I know it seems like I'm overbeating it, but life is really, 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 really just a game of focus. I think since this year started, I decided, just reeling off of, I read the book in the last quarter of last year, and I'm such a person that even though I love to, go through books, I'm always very intentional about my books. I always have, highlights and things. Okay, so what am I taking from this book that I'll start doing? And one of the things I started doing was understanding how to just, very simple things, nothing dramatic, no long tail. What do I want to do this week in 5 sentences? Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And at the end of the week, have I done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And that really just dramatically changed the way that I see results, because I started to realize that, oh, it's not like I don't have time. It's just because there is no clear output or things that you want to actually achieve that is, written down and, clearly stated and defined. You just keep going on. And the thing about life is that when you don't have like a clear path or focus, life is going to give you work to do. Honestly, like there will just be beans picking coming from different places. You will just begin think, because we can't exist in like a vacuum. There's always going to be stuff that will come up. So instead of me waiting for life to give me assignments, I'd rather create my own assignments and spend my time the way that I choose to spend my time. So that's one thread. And I know like sometimes when we hear sit in sessions like this, it just sounds like very big words flying around: intentionality, purpose, impact. Like sometimes just like break it down and choose to have like practical ways of tracking your life. And I think for me, a bigger motivation outside of just wanting to perform better and be excellent at the things that I do is understanding that life is a case of stewardship. Everything that we have in life was given to us by God, and He expects for us to be stewards of them, from the time to the relationships that you have to the resources that happen. It's not a mistake that you were born in the setting that you were born in. It's not a mistake that you got a scholarship to go to the school. That all of these things are resources, and God expects us to be great stewards of them. So a story that always just keeps me on my toes is the story of talent. And just imagining at the end of my time and standing before God, and God is like, oh yeah, so did you even know that you could act? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know. All I wanted to do was to become a medical doctor. Or like, oh, did you even know that you could read or you could write or you could tell stories? And you're like, oh well, I never even got a chance to explore that because I just happen to spend 8 hours on social media every day. So that drive of stewardship, really that motivation to be a good steward really drives me to focus. And this cuts across this now then turns into like intentionality across different dimensions. So yeah, I will stop talking.
I need to reward it again. Life is a game of focus.
Yeah.
That's very important. One of the things I talk about is your time and your energy. The things that it's such a resource that it's so infinite. As in, you don't have an infinite time, you don't have infinite energies. No matter how strong you are, at some point it catches up with you. And then you're steward of all these resources and all these opportunities that, we just seem like they just happened. I was just lucky. And they're going to give account for it.
And I like what you said. He said, if you don't focus, life will give you something to do. So you always feel like, where's the time? I'm busy. I'm like, if you're not intentional about focusing on what's important for you, and to your point, it doesn't have to be gigantic. Not everybody is called to be a speaker to the world. For some people, the assignment is that child in your hand that is going to, if you're not taking care of, will become a problem to the destiny of the person that the person is going to go encounter in future. And that's the one God will ask you, that the one I put in your hand, have you done it? For some people, it's the people that you encounter at work, the way you show what it's like to be an excellent person. I always believe that, whether you're as a Christian, you should be excellent. You should show that, this is an opportunity to show that this is how things are done and can be done right. And so, to your point, it's not big, gigantic, massive things. Ronke talked about the gratitude jar. You'll be surprised how deliberate, intentional, little things done with focus can change your perspective to life. And so the goal here is not to say, oh, when you live here today, you all have to be a content creator or you have to be this. It's asking yourself, what are the things that are unique to me? What is it that drives me? What keeps me going? Interestingly, Ihu had to ask me a question when I was writing this book. She didn't know that I was on this chapter or anything. And, at the time, she was like, she doesn't know why she asked me that question. But that, God was asking her, and he was like, what have I done that's not an accomplishment? For some of us, we're going through life, I need to knock this out, knock that out. And we're not thinking about who am I helping? Who is my life making better? And sometimes that's where the true happiness lies. Because at the time I was talking about being frustrated and stressed out, it was not because I was broke. I might not be super rich, but I was comfortable. But I knew that there was this yearning inside of me that there's more to you for me. And I was just feeling like I was held back. I was not doing what I should be doing. And so there's somebody out there who that deep within you, despite the fact that you're not complaining because the money is there, but that there's more to you. There's more to, your assignment. There's more to the reason why you're who you are. There's more to the reason why the journey that you went on. I always give the analogy of journeys a lot, because there's sometimes you tell a story to somebody and the way you say it, the person look at you and say, you don't know what it's like to be me. But when the person sees somebody, and that's why people are always cheap when they see people, maybe artists who came from Ajegunle and then they became big. It's not just what they achieved, it's the story that they're telling of somebody, that what is possible. Do you get? There are people who need to know your story, and that I survived. I made it despite this. But if you have not even realized how you have made it despite that, then how do you even tell the story? Ronke said, what she said very lightly today. When she said it to me last week, my head sort of, I don't know, the Yoruba says my head got up. My head was swollen, because sometimes we're just feeling like things are not working and you're so tied up in it. And when you realize that, there might be somebody who is going through that exact thing at this point in time. And because you've not recognized how well you have done, you're not even able to tell them that it is possible. You can make it, you can survive, you can come out. I know what it feels like to feel like my world has crashed on me, and yes, I came out better. So being intentional helps you to help somebody else. It helps somebody's destiny that is tied to yours. I'm really very passionate about this. But let me tell you, Ronke, around just, continuing your story around how being intentional helps you on purpose and impact.
All right, thank you, Fumi. When Uzoma was talking, she was saying something about the need to take stock. So I'll take a quote from the book and I'll read it verbatim. It says, when you do not take stock, people will do it for you. And it may not always be aligned with where you need to be. So many times, so many people think they know us more than we know ourselves. They think they know us more. But you are the one that knows yourself. Nobody gets to have a 360-degree view of you. So we need to know ourselves. So we need to know what our strengths are. We need to know what our weaknesses are. And there was a question he also asked in that book. He said, the question that was asked of the lady with the alabaster box. And the question he asked us was, do we know the cost of the oil in our alabaster box? So my question to you is, do you know the cost of the oil in your alabaster box? Are you selling your oil very cheaply? So we need to be deliberate. We need to take stock. When we know our strengths, when we know our weaknesses, we know the cost of that oil. I will not sell our oil too cheaply. So for me, it's a lot. even though you say the book is in 5 phases, for me, it's more like everything just flows seamlessly into one another. So when I'm talking of one aspect, I don't even know which one I'm talking about. There was another illustration you had in the book. You talked about letting go of emotional baggage. There's sometimes when we go through things, we don't know we picked up some baggage. You say it's like driving through a desert road, and then the car picks up some trees or some horrible stuff, and the car begins to go slower than it should. But when you take stock, you know that this is not me. I know there are some things I've picked up along the way that I need to shed, I need to let go of. Growing up, I was a very happy child. And when all of these things happened, I realized that somehow I became a moody person and all of that. And somehow, because I was taking stock, I said, no, this is not me. I need to be intentional. So every day when I go for my exercise, it kind of changes the mood, changes the atmosphere. And then with this gratitude jar thing as well, it also changes the mood and changes the atmosphere. So we need to be deliberate, and we need to make sure that we are the ones telling our stories and not allowing people tell our stories for us. Thank you, Fumi. It's a great book, and it's something I'll keep going to over and over and over again. So for people here to get their copy, please go get your copy. It's not something you read once. It's something you want to go back to over and over and over again. Thank you.
No, thank you, Runke. Thank you so much. When you talked about letting go of your emotional baggage, you reminded me of a story. I'm sure that one of these days I'll be able to get her on here to just talk about it herself. I had somebody who had reached out, earlier, had said something about, I'm getting this consistent messaging of take stock. Everywhere I'm looking, I'm hearing take stock. My personal coach talked about take stock. My church newsletter talked about take stock. What's going on? And I was like, you know what, read the book, and then, we can talk later and all. And much later, as I started reading the book, she would send me screenshots of things that she underlined in the book and all of that. But I think for her, the key message in the book was the emotional baggage. She said, I have realized a particular emotional baggage that I didn't even realize I had, and I'm going to deal with it severely. Weeks later, I spoke to her and I said, how are you doing? Are you taking stock and all that? She said, as soon as I was able to get over this emotional baggage, I'm enjoying my work and my relationships better. The very tricky thing about emotional baggage is that we come through situations and we're excited that we survived. So we celebrate surviving. Oh, the person went through that abusive marriage. Oh, they survived. Oh, this toxic work culture, I survived. And so we're excited that we survived. That's one thing. However, often we've carried something along as we went through that situation, and we don't realize if we're not paying attention. And so we start to judge people, judge life, take different decisions because we've been somewhat damaged by that going through that we're celebrating. But if we're not intentional to say, well, this really just happened in that situation, that's not who I am. Some people are just angry, bitter. When you say anything around them now in the world, they're like, yeah, it can't work. That's because they went through a situation, maybe it didn't work, they put all their hope in it, and it got dashed. But if you are not intentional to go to the root cause of that actual thing, you never know. But now you're walking around with sunshades on and you don't realize. So if you're wearing sunshades, when somebody tells this is white, no, that's brown. If you knew you had sunshades on, you know that, okay, let me take it off. But if you don't even realize that you have sunshades on, you're going to argue forever that it just can't work. And so that's the goal of being intentional. That's what it does to you. It asks you to say, maybe I've been putting layers and layers on this sunshade. Is this really who I am? Who have I become, and how is it impacting my perspective to life? And that's part of the things that taking stock does for you. And so as we start to think about, wrapping and this conversation, I would say, still go around to folks and say, beyond the book, we've talked about intentionality about taking stock. Like I said, each one of those ladies, they did not need take stock to get them to where they were. They were already doing great. I met Ronke, she's a John Maxwell coach. That's how I met her. I was my certification call. I met her. Same for Ihuaku. We kind of met on the same trip. She introduced herself as a global HR leader. These are people who have been intentional over time, but then they realize that maybe there's some more perspectives I need to look at. And so for me, I would say, what else would you just want to talk about just taking stock generally? And Ozioma, before I go back, Ozioma herself is somebody that I look at. Ozioma, I see so many things she puts on WhatsApp status, like she's a youth minister, she's passionate about stuff, she's been doing it for years, and I'll be like, when I think about my life some years ago in my mind, I'm like, that was the list of the things that was on my head at that time. And so for me, I want you all to just talk about just taking stock generally. And what else should we know about taking stock, really? So let me start with you, Zioma.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. Whenever you say these things, my brain always rises. Literally translating Yoruba, my brain always rises. I think maybe in wrapping, trying to wrap up, just two things that I have to say. First is the story of Moses comes to mind when God sent Moses to go and do something great and deliver the people of Israel, from the land of Egypt to where they were slaves. And Moses had so many questions, but a phrase that came up, when in that conversation with Moses is when God asked him, "What is in your hand?" And a lot of times, there's always many things to complain about. Oh, well, I don't have enough. My country, Nigeria, is even very problematic. So there's no space for me to even think about purpose. Or, well, I have my kids and my husband, and it's so much work. There's no time to think about impact. There is always going to be an excuse, right? But there is something in your hand. It might be something small, it might be something big, it might be something very minute, but it's something. And just choosing to start from where you are right now makes the difference. There's a quote that I don't know if it's a quote or something I probably saw somewhere where it says that success rewards consistency over intensity. A lot of times we're so hell bent on trying to be putting intense effort, but if you put in tiny little bit of effort in tracking your life, tracking your impact, tracking your purpose and how you're doing, you can actually come out with very strong results. And what's interesting, we already do this everywhere else. We do this at work. We are very intentional about, I hope, about tracking our outcomes and filling in all what's all those things they call it at work, all those your feedback sessions, your feedback cycles, and we're very intentional about things like that. We're intentional about, I don't know, maybe your investments and, trying to roll them over. When the date is due, when you ought to roll it over. How much more our lives, which is obviously of like greater value, right? And so that's one. And then the second thing that I would probably end up with, or like wrap up with, I don't know if it's the last time I'm talking, so I'll just say it anyways. And that's the aspect of understanding the fact that I bring a unique perspective to the table. There is never going to be anybody like Uzioma on the surface of the earth. That's not bragging. It is what it is. There is never going to be anybody like Fumi or Ronke or Iwaku ever again. It's never happened before. This is the only time it's happening, and it's not going to happen again, because there is uniqueness in the way that God made you, but there's also uniqueness in the way that life experiences. Nobody has had the exact unique set of experiences that you had. And so that makes you very valuable. So when you sit at the table, that makes you very valuable. You've got a unique experience and perspective that you're bringing to the table that nobody else in the world has. And that should give us some, confidence in terms of how we want to take stock and track our lives and track our progress. And at this point, I feel like I'm talking a lot. But yeah, those are the two things I want to end with. And so I'm going to mute myself now.
No, you're not talking enough. You're hitting the right notes. I think one of the things that I was talking to somebody recently, and she was talking about, this sort of imposter syndrome. Should I really be talking here or not? I'm like, you earned your place there. When I came to that realization and I found my voice, I'm like, I bring a unique perspective to the table. Like you said, nobody has gone to the same exact secondary school, same exact life situation. Even if you are twins, there are some things that you still experience. In fact, the fact that the other person arrived before you, or you arrived before the other person, is unique about you. And so there's a perspective you bring that the world will miss out on. I talk about jigsaw puzzles a lot. There's a picture that God is painting to the world. Each and every one of us has a unique place in that picture. The more you're trying to be someone else, the more you're misfit for where you're trying to be, and the path that is supposed to be for you is lying, gaping wide open. And then if God decides one day to say, you know what, don't worry, I'll fill it up with somebody else, then it's double jeopardy. You don't fit where you're trying to fit in, and then you don't have a place where you were supposed to be, because the target that you were supposed to desperately be focused on is rotting away, and God needs somebody to save or encounter that person and help redirect their step. Being intentional about being you is very important. Thanks for those that have been commenting in the chat. Lamide Johnson, echoed something Ronke said earlier. I said you have to be in charge of your narrative. No one knows you better. No one knows you better. I've seen comments around, that if we're intentional about our day-to-day living, life, if you're not intentional, life will catch up on us with no notice. Thanks to Missy Ade for that. She said, there are people who need to hear our stories. But how do you tell it if you're not even paying attention to yourself? So we need to pay attention to ourselves. And so that I don't keep going on and on about this, let me turn to Ronke, and then after that, we turn to Ihuaku.
All right, thank you. So for me, I would say life happens, and the earlier you accept whatever it is that comes your way, the better for you. But if you keep, most times we have a picture of what our life should be like. Our life should be so. But somehow life happens and life doesn't go the way you want it to be. But the earlier you accept reality, and then take stock of all you have, take stock of the benefits, take stock of what you need to do differently from where you were when you started off initially, the better for you. So for me, I would say take stock, get back up immediately, make the best use of the situation you're in, and then get all the help that you can when you need that, and then move on. So take stock, it helps you refocus quickly and move on. And mostly, don't waste the pain. Make sure you're writing them down, like you said, and make sure you share it with somebody so that they can learn from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronke. Don't waste the pain. And that brings me to something I had in the book, and it was like the last chapter of the book around, so the morning after I take stock, what do I do with it? And that's very important. For if we don't take anything away, we need to realize that the whole point of taking stock is so that you can get on to something, right? You are being made for impact, whether it's to be telling your story or making adjustments in your life around some things that have gone off path that should not be there, or you just need to reinforce something or refine yourself more and make the goal that you are carrying in the raw form become more refined so that folks can see it, study something, learn something new, or just, start something so that you can grow in the process. Ultimately, the reason you take stock is so that you can do something with it. Some people are on the extreme end of the spectrum. They learn forever, but never do anything. They're waiting for that perfect time. And that learning is never going to happen just by sitting and thinking through. Some things you must learn it through life. Life must happen to you in the process, and then you get on with life. So it's important that we take that learning and use it appropriately. Otherwise, then what's the whole point of taking stock? We must be intentional about what we do with taking stock. And so I'll turn over to Ihuaku to give us some thoughts around this.
So essentially, this book is about purpose, right? Living a purposeful life. And you cannot live a purposeful life without taking stock, without knowing where you are, without knowing who you're becoming, without knowing where you're going, without knowing what the destination is, without knowing the people you have been sent to impact. There's no way. If you decide just to start, you have to go to, I don't know, Los Angeles, and you just start going. Forget about it. You probably will not get there if you don't turn on the map, if you don't ask questions, if you don't check for the weather and all that stuff. You will get frustrated on the journey of purpose. So taking stock helps to bring you back, helps to center you back on the purpose that you have been created for. And there's something that you wrote in the beginning of chapter 7, and it goes like this: the onions of becoming can be peeled back one layer at a time, or sliced to expose all layers at once. When you take stock, you're actually like an onion, peeling out one layer at a time. It's not something you do today and say, okay, I'm done, I'm taking stock, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, let's go do it. You have to continuously, intentionally do it all the time to be in purpose. Otherwise, you get frustrated like Elijah. You forget who you are sent to impact. And in the end, like the talents, when they come to ask you, my friend, what did you do with what I gave you? Right? You will start to blabber all about, right? I knew you were a hard man. I knew you were wicked. I knew you gave this person 5, you gave this person 2, only me you gave 1. But you had something. So it's really, really important for us not just to take it as one and done exercise. You take stock, you go and do, and then you come back and you take stock again. If you look at the last part of the book, there's a table there. I like that the last thing that you put on that table was, I will start to. In summary, I will start. It's a doing book. It's not a book you read and put on your shelf. You take it out, you read it, you do something, you go back again, you consult it, and then you start to do something again. Thank you so much, Fumi, for putting down these thoughts, for helping us to understand that taking stock is the only way we can arrive at the purpose at the very end, right, of our life. And thank you, ladies, for this wonderful conversation.
No, thank you, Ihuaku. Thank you, Ronke. Thank you, Ozioma, for this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. We're about to wrap up, but I wanted to just test with those that are still on the call. I'm going to give out some copies, some copies of the book. And so I need to know what's your biggest takeaway today? You know, if you've been here from the beginning, or you came in through 1 minute and you heard somebody say something, just tell us what's your biggest takeaway from the book. As I sort of build on what Ihuaku said, I would like to see it in the chat. Let's see, what your takeaway is. Even if you don't want the book as a gift, just tell us, what have you learned from your time here? Let's hear. Somebody says, don't waste the pain. Don't waste it. There's a reason it happened to you and not somebody else. Me has to be intentional, and I'll be reading some of those right now. But Iwaku said something. It's not a one and done exercise. Imagine you're going out to somewhere where you've never gone. You put on the Google Maps, okay, I think I have an idea of the direction, and then you put it off and then you're going. If there's a crash on the road, how would you know where you're supposed to take a detour? If you've missed your way, how do you even know that things have changed? If traffic has built up on one route and you're supposed to move to another, how would you know? In life, you need to continue to take stock. There are so many times when you were so clear about an assignment. You were so clear, and then something started to change along the way. You're wondering, did I miss it? Maybe you just weren't paying attention to some of the signals of the unique path that you're supposed to take to get to that assignment. When I started writing this book, I was sure I was going to write the book. And I had my idea about what I wanted to write, how I'm going to write it. But it turns out God wanted me to go a specific route to write the book. So we must be intentional continuously. It's not a one and done event. We all continue to learn something new every day by being intentional. That's how life is. That's the nature of what life is. Dynamic. If any one of us could know everything, then how is God still God, right? There will be twists, there will be turns, life would happen, things will challenge our confidence. There will be days when you will feel like, you're the best thing that has happened to the world. And there are days when something will happen and you start to second guess everything. But when you learn the habit of being intentional, it helps you to go back and draw strength again from whatever you have on your inside, knowing that you have a purpose. You bring a unique perspective. The journey that you're on is for a reason. And you even take stock of your resources, the friends you should be partnering with, the ones that you don't know that they're supposed to be helping you on your journey because you've never paid attention to everything else that they carry, where you're supposed to be spending your time. The fact that I'm on this call today, really, my 4 years ago person may never have said hi to these folks when I met them. But today we're here doing a call together, each one of them touching me with their own unique stories. Be intentional. And so let me take the comments that folks have put in terms of what they've learned. I've seen be intentional. Don't waste the pain. Life is a game of focus. It is a game of focus. What you focus on sort of shows up in your life. Take stock to recenter your purpose. It is about purpose. It is about purpose. And so we're going to be giving, Lamide Johnson has been very active on the call. And so after the call, you can DM me with your with your details. We'll send the book across to you. Hopefully you're in the part of the world where we can get the book to you. Same for let me see, Imisia Day. Thank you for being active. But if you're watching this later, again, I believe in intentionality of life. There's a reason you joined us today. There's a reason you've heard Ronke's story. There's a reason you've heard Ihuaku's story. There's a reason that you've heard Ozioma bring her own perspective the way that she has brought it. And so we're turning it back to you. What are you going to be intentional about? What are you going to be doing differently? More importantly, I want you to read the book. I want you to buy the book. Buy the book. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, everybody has their copy. Please buy the book. It is very important. Like I say to people, it's because I feel like you want to ask yourself some questions. There's so many questions in there. It is not one of those books that is like, okay, you shall do this. I share some of my stories, but then I ask you questions that you need to ask yourself. You're not going to get the answers there. You're going to get prompts around what's important. What is important? What questions should I be asking myself? You know, like Ozioma said in the chat, it's a great working material. I said, you underline it, you come back to it, ask yourself, go back again and see how it's going. You can get copies of the book if you're in diaspora. You can get it on Amazon. It's on all the Amazon stores. Just type "take stock of who you have become on the journey to becoming," or you can search with my name, Fumilola Asa. There's more details on my page. But if you're in Nigeria, it's available at Roving Heights Bookstore. It's available in Ibadan at the booksellers in Ibadan. And then on my website, you can also get it on the website as well. Or you can DM me for details. You know, I might have it in a pocket closer to you where you might be able to get it easier. So again, please buy the book. But more importantly, when people buy it, I ask them, please read the book. Because I'm not passionate about people buying it. I'm passionate about people who are able to tell the stories of their life because they read something that resonated with them. And they're like, yes, I'm one of the 7,000 that's in the cave that needed this reinforcement at this time. You know, when I talked about the Elijah story, Jezebel may not have reckoned with Elijah, but maybe the person who really needed Elijah's, you know, the call down of fire, the rain, was one of the 7,000 who was about to give up on, is it really worth it? Should I really be serving this God when the whole nation does not think it matters? Yeah. And maybe that's those people that needed the reinforcement, and they got it. They saw God in action, and they were like, yeah, I need to continue this journey. You don't know who the story of your life is targeted at. If you're intentional, if you're recognizing the little signals, the person who has questions of you all the time, who has a certain kind of path that you're on, the more you see that, the more you're able to work in your purpose for God. And I trust God that the encounter with this session today will make a difference for you. It will provide clarity and it will inspire you on your own journey. And, you know, please, I want you lady, to give details of your handles, how people can follow you and all of that, because even those that are not yet very active in the social media space, they shall be active, because yes, they shall continue to tell people their stories. And so let me start with Ronke as we kind of start to close this off.
Okay, that puts you unawares. I mean, so it's been an interesting experience for me. I mean, it's been a good one. So thank you, Fumi. I mean, the book for me has impacted me, and the question I've asked myself over and over again is, what am I going to do after this? So somehow, after I read the book, you know, I had plans to share my story. So I've started that already. I've started writing. So I'm being intentional now about writing the book. I'm taking stock, and hopefully before the end of the year, I should complete the writing of the book. So thank you.
So you guys, there's a powerful book coming. Thank you. She becomes very active on social media. I will tag her so that all of you can start to follow her. All right, Ihuaku.
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Ihuaku Ugu. If you're passionate about growing, when you finish taking stock and you want to start growing, follow me on LinkedIn, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations around growing, both personally and also in your career.
Right. Thanks, Ihuaku. Ozioma, tell them everything, everywhere.
I was going to say my own story is reversed because I'm trying to run away from social media. But anyways, at the moment I'm active mostly on LinkedIn, and very soon I would be active again on Instagram, but not on this account, on an account called @my_PhD story. That's where I tend to share like more lessons about my journey. Yeah, so LinkedIn, and then LinkedIn. I feel like with LinkedIn I would have most of my updates on there whenever there's any major updates. So that's Ozioma Amaka Paul on LinkedIn. Thank you. Thank you for your platform.
And she shared her PhD story on my _PhD story on Instagram. To everyone who's participated, to everyone who's joined, to everyone who will be listening to this later, my earpiece is just flying in and out of my ear all the time. I just want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time. I hope this has been really impactful for you. It will be available on my page at Fumi Asa on LinkedIn. At Fumi Asa on Instagram. Everywhere else, I'm Fumilola Asa, which is on LinkedIn, Fumilola Asa. I resurrected my Facebook recently because it's now linked to my Instagram, so Fumilola Asa there. And also I recently started a YouTube channel, but I'll make those details available. So if you want to just follow me, please follow my Instagram page, Fumi Asa. And if you read the book and something has struck for you and you really want to share your story, please DM me. We can set, this is going to be a quarterly session by God's grace, where we bring different perspectives of those who have been impacted by the book. So watch out. In maybe another 3 months, we'll be having another session of this. And if you want to be part of one of the upcoming sessions because you read something in the book, DM me and let's talk through the details. But thank you all. For whatever reason, I forgot. I was going to start the session with a prayer. So I'm still going to say it anyways, because I know that there's no mistakes with God. He put the idea in my mind. I delayed on it. I was like, is it really, but I was like, you know what, I'll do it. And so I want to thank you, God, for the opportunity for us to meet and have this conversation. I know definitely that there's a reason we've had this conversation today. I pray, Lord, that whoever needs to hear this would hear it. Whoever needs to rehear it in their mind, oh God, you, oh God, will reestablish it in their mind. Amen. They will be changed, they will be transformed, and the world will see the impact from those who are becoming intentional about who they are, who they've become, and who you want them to be in your picture story to the world. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Thank you, people. It was great having you. For those who won my prizes, Lamide Johnson, DM me, and who was it? Imisiade, please DM me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Go forth and be the light. Go forth, change your world. Go forth, be intentional, and let's continue to change the world together. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye.